sometimes all you have is a blue shop rag to draw out your ideas. So I'm just showing you quickly how I might mock up a electronics enclosure on the back of a blue shop rag. So here I'm just kind of throwing out some rough isometric outlines to give me an idea of the form factor, the overall size, kind of the height, the overall top view. And I'm using very light lines. I'm pulling the pen across the rag. If I push too hard, it will rip through. So you got to be careful with it. And you're just trying to lay down the groundwork for the upcoming sketch entities. In sketching, a lot of what we're trying to do is maintain proportions. And so what I want to maintain here are the length, width, and depth proportions, as well as the proportionality of the fillets to the body itself. Because what I want to do here is just explain, if we had to build this device and it was roughly this size, how might the part breakup work, or how we might assemble such a device. There's a number of challenges that come up, and sometimes all you have are a pen and a scrap of paper to describe it. So here I'm laying out what might be like a key fob or an electronic dongle. Updating the proportions here because my side view wanted to be a little bit thicker just to give the device a little bit more heft. So I bringing in here a ring feature kind of at the bottom edge there, just a nice circle, and then I'm using construction lines vertically to make sure that my features that are applied to the top view are consistent in length to the features on the top view or the side view. And so here I'm just cleaning that up. And then I'm considering, well, what might be the kind of primary or A-side curves that influence the shape of the design. So I'm giving the upper surface and lower surface a really generous or a really gentle curve, as well as kind of the side view, top, front to back, or end to end, giving that a slight curvature for two reasons. Really aesthetic, I think it doesn't cost any more. You can build a nice form, but also from a manufacturing perspective, molding flat parts is more difficult than molding parts that have a gentle curve to them. The natural tension in the plastic will help hold that curve, and that part will maintain its shape a lot better, even if it's a 1,000 millimeter curve on what should be a flat surface. So here I'm then translating some of those shapes, what was the top view, onto the sort of top view framework, which is my isometric shape here, and I'm making marks on the ends that indicate the proportions of how those curves line up. So here I'm kind of boxing out the shape in space, building what I call a bounding box or construction lines to help me understand where in space these forms would take place, how big the fillets should be relative to the overall form. And then I'm starting to understand, again, if that top curve were to be translated into isometric, it would intersect with the top and bottom planes at about where I'm sketching it here. So I'm pulling these construction lines through to give my eye a visual of where that would be. And I pull a contour line across the top center. That's really the only surface contour line that we're going to be able to see in the device. The two corners where those intersect will be a little bit muddier and hard to draw in. But it is possible to calculate the overall size and the size of the fillets just using this construction line and bounding box method. So as I'm sketching in these shapes, I can start to calculate where the fillets start and stop, and these dimensions I can pull directly from my top view to help me maintain my proportions of the form. The next thing I want to do here is kind of detail out, just for my own purposes, what I think I want the corner to look like, because I don't want that to be a crisp corner. I want it to be a gentle fillet, kind of a curvature, continuous fillet around that top edge. And then we also need to bring in the button or the keypad. So again, looking at the top surface and pulling lines that are parallel to my construction bounding box, I can bring in the keypad on the isometric view, keeping the proportions of the lines appropriate. The keypad itself, or the keypad button, we need to find the center line, because the center of that opening will define the center of this circular shape. And as we know, that circular shape, when viewed in isometric view, is going to be an ellipse. And the ellipse will have its short axis parallel to this line I'm drawing here, which is a vertical line coming out from the center point. So I'm drawing my ellipse such that the spaces between the corners of the ellipse and the opening in the key or in the housing are symmetrical. And you saw me turn the page there so that my hand was parallel to or moving perpendicular to the long axis of the ellipse. This is just a trick that I've learned to help make sure my ellipses are drawn appropriately. We're putting in a few heavier lines to indicate the outer mold line, or kind of the outer shape of the device. And here in the ISO view, I actually played around with some square shaped buttons rather than the round shaped buttons that are in the top view. And I don't know that I like that so much, but just kind of a exploration sketch here. So feeling free, keeping it loose. I'm going to pull the key ring feature from the top view into the isometric view here and explore how that might penetrate the housing. Sometimes these features need to be resolved in CAD. They might seem obvious in our mind's eye when we're drawing or when we're thinking about the feature, and then drawing it maybe makes it seem possible, and then we throw it into CAD and realize that the mold parting line interfacing with that ring may just make this nearly impossible. But dropping a little shadow in here shows that keyring is off the surface. And then I'm just going to clean up this sketch a little bit, throw in a few overall dimensions to give us a sense of scale on the drawing. Again, arbitrary dimensions here, relatively random project sketch, so nothing specific here, but helping me keep everything in perspective. As I think about this assembly, I might want to show somebody in manufacturing what I'm thinking in terms of what the lower housing might look like. So I'm just sketching a quick ISO view of just the lower housing, throwing in a few contour lines indicating that top surface would be the mold parting line, and then the contour lines on the inside indicate that inner part is a recess. And you'll see that inner edge of the lower housing, the closest edge to us in that drawing, is a dark edge, which indicates that there's air behind that edge, and we can really show and punch our drawing by playing with the line weights. The last thing I wanted to add in here was just a really brief exploded view showing how I might assemble this. What are the part breakups? So the way I see it, there's an upper and lower housing, there's kind of a gasket or a seal, there's a printed circuit board, and probably some sort of keypad. I'm not including any off-the-shelf hardware here. There might be screws, there might be light pipes, there might be other features that I'm not drawing, but just identifying them and giving them names allows the design team to talk about the project and talk about the parts with a common terminology. So hopefully this is helpful. Have a great Wednesday.